Now that we're almost a month through the NBA season, let's check in on the lottery selections from the most recent NBA draft. The prevailing sentiment leading up and even since the draft was that this was one of the weakest classes we've seen in quite a while. The most commonly cited evidence to that claim was the very top of the draft. It was a commonly held belief, pretty much consensus really, that the Atlanta Hawks' first overall selection of Zachary Risacher wasn't close to the level of prospect we expect to see at the top. The conversation surrounding his future typically didn't involve a very high ceiling. Since the draft, however, those conversations have been a little bit different. Some early struggles in the regular season started to have some questioning their previously perceived floor of Risacher as a reliable 3-and-D presence. Across his first 8 games, he was averaging just 9.4 points while shooting only 33% from the field and 21% from 3. Struggles that showed up in the team's output as well, given he was playing over 25 minutes a night. Through those first 8 games, he had the second lowest offensive rating in the Hawks rotation, to go along with a team low negative 16.2 net rating. There's just no way around the fact it was a terrible start for the top picks rookie campaign. However, luckily, a lot changed in that 9th game of the season against the New York Knicks, a game that really encapsulated all the traits that had scouts so intrigued prior to the draft: getting open off the ball, both beyond the perimeter and cutting to the rim, his ability attacking closeouts, jumping passing lanes, and getting out in transition. He finished the game with 33 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, going 11 for 18 from the field and 6 for 10 from distance. An objectively incredible performance that not only reinvigorated the excitement of Atlanta fans going forward, but also had many reevaluating that ceiling they believed he previously possessed. Now, so far, that game hasn't really marked a turning point in the season. He dropped 7 points in the following game, going 2 for 7 from the field, then went just 1 for 6 from 3 in the next game. In fact, that 33-point night against the Knicks was the only game this season he even shot 30% from distance. As a whole, it's still been rough, just 38% from the field and 26% from 3. But at least for now, there's still plenty of room to be optimistic. A good example of that is that just from that one game alone, we've seen his odds for Rookie of the Year skyrocket all the way to the top, currently sitting at just over 3-1. Now, every night that I'm watching the games, I'm usually also sweating out some entries on PrizePicks, the sponsor for today's video. It's super simple, more or less on pretty much any stat you can think of, and you can win up to 100 times your entry. One of the things I love about PrizePicks is just how often they're bringing in new features. Recently, they just added live squares. You can now put together entries with players that are currently playing. We're also just a few days away from the PrizePicks World Championships. Celebrities like Sugar Sean O'Malley, Drewski, and Sketch are going to be facing off, but you can also get involved. You can pick one of the teams to ride with, and if they win, you're going to get a free lineup for a shot at $5K. PrizePicks' promos just don't stop rolling in. Every Tuesday is a Taco Tuesday with discounted squares. Every Friday is Flex Friday, where everyone gets a protected play, where you either win or you get your cash back. And finally, for my viewers, if you sign up for PrizePicks with the link in the description below and use the code JIMMER when you sign up, after you play your first entry of at least $5, they're going to hook you up with $50 instantly. Thank you PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. With the second overall pick, the Washington Wizards selected French center coming from the Australian NBL, Alex Sarr. Following draft night, Sarr was actually the favorite to bring home the Rookie of the Year award, but after 4 Summer League games that saw him shoot just 19% from the field and 12% from 3, those odds quickly faltered. So far in the regular season, despite some really promising outputs during the preseason, that shot making has continued to be a glaring struggle for Sarr. Through his first 8 games, he's averaged 9.8 points, but on shooting splits of just 34% from the field and 20% from 3. Now, we've definitely seen plenty of good things on the other end of the floor. He's currently sitting back over 2 shots a game and has a top defensive rating for Washington. But right now, it's hard to get too excited about that end with where the offense is. During the time that Alex Sarr is on the court, the Washington Wizards are one of the worst offensive teams in the entire league with an offensive rating of just 99.5. With the 3rd overall pick, the Houston Rockets grabbed Kentucky freshman Reed Sheppard, someone who got off to a really hot start. He averaged 20 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds during the Las Vegas NBA Summer League, production that sent his odds for Rookie of the Year flying up. But since the season has tipped off, Shepard's pretty much fallen out of the race. Not necessarily due to his play on the court, but right now, there's just not a role available in Houston. Currently, they're going with a pretty tight rotation. They've got 7 players getting over 22 minutes a night. This has left little remaining for the likes of Risacher and Cam Whitmore. Shepard's averaged less than 12 minutes so far, and even in that time, with how many mouths there are to feed in Houston, he has a pretty small share of the offense. Through 10 games, he's averaged just 3 points, while shooting with 42-35 splits. It's looking like it's going to take a pretty big roster change for things to change in any significant way for Shepard. Now, a lack of opportunity hasn't been the problem for the Spurs' 4th overall pick, Stephon Castle, who right now is getting over 22 minutes a game. But like many of the other top picks this year, it's been a struggle for Castle to get the ball in the basket. Across his first 8 games, he averaged less than 6 points, while shooting only 30% from the field and just 14% from 3. Undoubtedly an offensive liability at that stage of the season. But over the last couple games, it does appear that Castle's starting to get more and more comfortable. He's coming off 14 points and 6 assists against the Blazers. Then he had by far his best game against Utah, where he dropped 23 points, going 8 for 16 from the field and 3 for 7 from distance. Now, it should be mentioned that these two teams currently sit at the very bottom of the Western Conference, but even with that said, it's still a promising sign for Castle. Unfortunately, the not-so-positive trend continues with the 5th overall pick to the Pistons, Ron Holland. Through his first 11 games, the biggest concern surrounding him leading up to the draft has continued to be a glaring concern. He's averaged just over 14 minutes a night, where he's putting up 6 points and 3 rebounds, shooting 45% from the field, but just 15% from 3. Across these 11 games, he's taken 26 shots from beyond the arc and has made just 4 of them. Additionally, he's produced a team-low net rating of -8. Probably the most surprising selection of the night was the Hornets deciding to grab French wing Tejan Salon, one of the more raw talents in this class that many viewed as a long-term project at the next level, a sentiment that was starting to shift during a really promising preseason, but has since reverted since the start of the regular season. So far, he's had a pretty surprising role, averaging 17 minutes a night, but in that time he's averaged just 3 points, while shooting only 27% from the field and 21% from 3. He's managed to rack up some pretty unique game lines so far. 19 minutes, 2 points. 21 minutes, 2 points. 22 minutes, 10 shots, 5 points. 16 minutes, 0 points. The long-term upside hasn't gone anywhere, but that doesn't make the start of his rookie season any better than it's been. Now, a prospect that many envisioned making a strong impact immediately was a Blazers 7th overall selection, UConn center Donovan Clingan. The biggest draw for Clingan was undoubtedly his defense. He was coming off quite possibly the most dominant defensive run in NCAA tournament history. So far through his NBA career, however, it's been a mixed bag for Clingan on that end of the floor. In only 14 minutes a game, he's averaging 1.6 blocks. That's over 4 blocks per 36 minutes. Exciting, but he's also committing 2.5 fouls a night in just 13 minutes. That's over 6 fouls per 36. The second highest rate in the entire league. Then offensively right now, as expected, we just haven't seen much volume. He's currently averaging 4.8 points, shooting 54% from the field. Now luckily, foul trouble is super common for young bigs, so there really isn't any long-term concern surrounding Clingan's potential defensively. Another surprising move on draft night was the Timberwolves deciding to trade into the lottery at 8, where they selected Rob Dillingham, a prospect whose talent as an on-ball creator made him easily one of the more exciting prospects in this class. Unfortunately, however, we've seen very little of Dillingham to begin the season. He's only appeared in 4 games to this point, where he's averaged less than 5 minutes. At 9, the Memphis Grizzlies made the most polar pick of the night, when they selected back-to-back Naismith Player of the Year, 7'4" center Zach Edey, someone who's had a pretty solid start so far, far better than the vast amount of critics probably expected. He's played in 11 games, averaging just under 20 minutes, where he's put up 11 points and 7 rebounds a night, shooting 65% from the field. Production that so far has him right up there with Risacher for the Rookie of the Year odds. Now, what will be interesting to pay attention to as the season goes on is a transformation of Edey's role. Right now, pretty much game to game, it changes quite a bit. For example, just recently he had his best game of the season against the Nets, dropping 25 points, missing just 1 shot, to go along with 12 rebounds and 4 blocks in only 29 minutes. But then in the following game against the Lakers, he plays just 15 minutes, barely seeing the court at all in the second half. Another aspect of Edey's game to pay attention to is his floor spacing. He's been turning heads over the last week by being able to drain a few shots from distance. He has sunk at least 1 3 in 3 of his last 4 games, and on the season has taken 7 shots beyond the perimeter and knocked in 4 of them. The Jazz at 10 went with Cody Williams, who so far has had one of the bigger roles in this class, playing over 23 minutes a night. In that time, however, we haven't seen much. In his debut against Memphis, he played 19 minutes, didn't make a single shot, and racked up 4 fouls. Over the course of his first 9 games, he's averaged 4.2 points, shooting just 28% from the field and 17% from 3. For the Jazz right now, this lack of production isn't being made up elsewhere. He currently sits with the worst offensive rating in the league at just 96.1. He also sits with the second worst net rating at negative 22.6. 11 was the Chicago Bulls, who selected Matas Buzelis, who so far hasn't played much at all. Just 32 minutes across 6 games, time in which he shot just 2 for 12 from the field and failed to knock in any of his 5 attempts from distance. The final selections of the lottery, Nikola Topic and Devin Carter, are still yet to make their NBA debuts. Now obviously there's a lot more players in this rookie class, some playing really well, some not so much. So if you guys want to see me go deeper into this draft, just let me know in the comments below.